if you've got an amazing engineering team, then offer to do something meaningful with that engineering team. And I would argue that it's what you do as a business that matters the most, your overall impact as a business, not what you do per person within that business.
So hopefully you guys have been inspired, and you're all going to run back to your companies and find ways of doing some good. But maybe you can do some good with your existing tech, or not necessarily tech, but existing resources. So what are your guys' advice on what these guys could do? I think we've heard about some baby steps, and that's good. But what advice could you give these guys on when they hit their desk 9 o'clock tomorrow morning, 10 o'clock, they've had a drink? How do they get started on changing, doing something for good for their community, for their businesses? What's your thoughts on that, Alex?
Sure. Well, CSR has been around decades, but I feel that it hasn't really changed that much. I remember I was first exposed to CSR in my first job out of university. I was working for a big law firm, and very little has changed since then, I would say. And for the most part, there's a lot of good intention, but there's not necessarily that much impact. And the problem with there not being that much impact, and I'm talking about the average company, and clearly there are many, many exceptions to this, is that people see through that. And especially, as we were talking about before, sort of Gen Zers see through that as well. And this is a company of 800 people, and you're telling me that that's what we did last year. And they're not necessarily, again, generalizing, over the moon with what the average company is doing. So I guess what would be my advice? You need to drop anything that is tokenistic, because people will see through that in a flash. I remember a couple of years ago, a massive multi-billion-dollar revenue business got in touch and said, could our board come in and paint your office? I said, well, not sure WeWork would love that. But that's like one of the many reasons why that's a terrible idea. The main reason is that it's totally tokenistic and everyone will see through that in a flash. So do stuff that is authentic. Do stuff that you can measure, because as you all know from your own businesses, if you can't measure it, then you can't manage it, you can't increase it. So pick some targets, pick some metrics, be ruthlessly focused on those. Another thing I would say is play to your strengths. And you all have expertise, but use those expertise and be focused and deliberate about it. If you're an amazing, if you've got an amazing engineering team, then offer to do something meaningful with that engineering team. And I would argue that it's what you do as a business that matters the most, your overall impact as a business, not what you do per person within that business. So I think what I mean by that is that I think there's a very, very established CSR tradition where you give everyone half a day a year or 1 or 2 days a year. And that's just not helpful. That's just not helpful. And most of the time charities accept that help is because they hope that it is part of a breadcrumb trail to a big donation. But ask yourselves, would you want someone joining your team for 1 day? No way. But if you were to actually take a small group and actually give them a meaningful chunk of time, a little secondment, maybe it's a few months, maybe it's just weeks, but a block of time, then they'll be able to do some amazing things with those partner organizations, and the whole company will feed off of their success.
And I think that plays to what Tessa was talking about earlier on, about retaining your talent, yeah? First of all, investing in them, that you're willing for them to go off and do something else for, maybe a couple of weeks, a month, half a year or whatever, is really great. And then they'll bring all of that goodness and good process and learning back into your organisation. I mean, it's a win-win situation in that sense, yeah. Elliot, what about you?
Speaking to some of you folks earlier, and it's like some of these businesses that you're involved with are massive, and talking personally with Ecology, we had a lot of individuals and families and SMEs involved, and in the last few months, like mostly just enterprises, and kind of like the opportunity you have as a sizable company is just staggering. So like you have a real opportunity to like be a real kind of climate leader, especially in your kind of senior positions that you have. So yeah, like if you can make it happen, start to raise the flag. Think of how you can bake climate and sustainability and restoration of the things that you find important. Then like as a techie, you'll see the opportunities abound with integrations and seeing the impact that you can have, and make your bosses real happy by knowing the kind of the additional revenue that you'll be getting from all the kind of like being able to persist in the future of being like a purposeful kind of greenish company. It's a real big deal. Like in the next over the next few weeks, essentially we're mostly getting involved with this kind of real-time automated carbon footprinting of enterprise businesses. It's really exciting. So if you're interested about measuring your actual carbon footprints, come chat to me a little bit later. But it's, seeing is believing. When you can actually see your carbon footprint, you can check on it like an hour later and it be different. It's really bizarre seeing emissions happen within your business just in front of your eyes, and it's going to make a real big difference for sure.
Cool. Tessa, in terms of, you pivoted a little bit, or not pivoted, but added an additional service around the school meals, right? Mm-hmm. And I think you said, and I'm a technologist, so I'm always wary of this, I think you said really quickly, like almost overnight, we spun up something to do that. But technologists, they'll be very nervous about it and stuff like that. But, can we do stuff quickly? I mean, we've got some big companies here, as Elliot says, and sometimes they can be a bit slow to turn, like a tanker. But is it simpler than that? Is it just doing quick things and getting new capability out to the marketplace? What do you think?
Before you start trying to do something, for me, the very, very first step is to get some fire in your belly. You will only take action if you give a shit. And I highly recommend, if you want to get some fire in your belly, either reading 2 books, which is Naomi Klein's book, Capitalism versus the Climate, and Paul Gilding's book, The Great Disruption. Or if you're more of a kind of video documentary type person, Al Gore's classic An Inconvenient Truth, Leonardo DiCaprio's Before the Flood. Once you've watched and read those things, you will have serious fire in your belly. Once you have fire in your belly, you will start to make things happen. The next thing, before you start taking any actions, is to make sustainability, and I use that as the kind of the broad umbrella term for I think something that all of us are addressing, is you have to make sustainability a top 3 priority for your organisation. Not a top 10, not a top 5, a top 3. Because this is an emergency, it is a crisis, and stuff will only get done if it's a top 3. And you need to be talking to your C-suite and getting collective buy-in to this being a top 3 priority. Then you need to look at your company values and check that your company values are consistent with this being a top 3 priority. Then you need to look at your KPIs and check that they are also reinforcing this being a top 3 priority. So you've got to do all of that homework first before you then start taking action. And then I would say with the action, what I said before, start small. It is amazing. The other thing you'll have to do is empower your people, by the way. We have not got the time for a command and control approach to solving these crises. The leaders have to say this is a top 3 priority, here's our company values, here's our KPIs, and then you have to empower your people to start coming up with great creative solutions. And many of them will come up with hugely impactful quick wins very fast. And there'll be some longer term projects as well.
I think that will resonate with our audience usually. As technologists, somebody in our business teams are always turning up and asking us just to deliver something overnight. Mm-hmm. And we often say, can you just think about that a little bit? Can you just put a business case around it? Can you actually think what it means? And so I think you just quite rightly said, whoa, stop, don't build, don't do something, think about it and get that. So I think that will resonate a lot.
Can I do one shameless plug as well? Go for it. Which is, sorry, it'd be rude not to. No, I am sure that many of you have large corporate canteens or you run catered events, and at those you will inevitably have an enormous amount of perfectly good food being thrown in the bin every single day. If that is the case, please reach out to me and Olio. We have 30,000 trained volunteers who collect and redistribute unsold and unserved food from large organisations such as Tesco, Pret a Manger, Compass Catering, Elior, Selfridges, Planet Organic, you name it. So if you want to reach net zero, you are going to have to stop throwing away food, and we can help you do that.
Great. Excellent. Thank you. They haven't left yet, Chris. They're still here. So they want to make some change. They want to do something. Is it as hard as Tess is saying, or is it easier than that?
I'm not sure how to follow that. I mean, that's exactly. I mean, the systemic change you're talking about requires all of that, doesn't it? It requires from the top all the way through to the enablement of your employees to be able to take action. So, you know, you need to put all of that in place. It's easy for me with a small business. You know, you need to role model it as a leader, create that space. And then to your point, like pick a cause that you care about as a team. Listen to your employees and go, right, let's pick a cause, let's put it on the agenda, and then let's put the resources behind it, and then lead by example. Like, you've got to get involved. You can't just outsource it and get. I'm sure you're in large organisations where you think we set up this committee and okay, I'll go off and do it. You've got to get involved yourself. So I think it's, you know, the systemic change. You've got to get it started. And for me, shameless plug as well. You know, I think from a mental health perspective, like, you've got to slow down. I'm telling everyone at the moment that we seem to have got this expectation. We're moving from an 18-month period of hibernation straight into hunting. You don't see the bears in the wild go straight from, right, they've been asleep for 9 months and they're straight out in the river hunting fishes. It takes them time. And there's this expectation suddenly within the commercial world that, right, we can now start growing again. Right, let's start motoring. Your employees are suffering at the moment, and they're going to be struggling. So slow down, listen to them, and if you need some help with that, give me a call and we'll see if we can come and help you.
That's really great advice.